What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Today we're going to be breaking down the game between the Dallas Renegades and the LA Wildcats, giving you guys a fantasy news and notes breakdown of everything in this game. Final score, Renegades 25, LA Wildcats 18. But hey, if you are looking for fantasy XFL and just XFL news content, hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to be keeping you up to date on everything happening across the XFL. Anyway, not going to waste any more time. Let's get started right away. Alright guys, so as I said, we are breaking down the Renegades and Wildcats in this one. If you didn't get a chance to watch this was definitely one of the more fun games on the week. But I've actually gone ahead and created a condensed full replay for you guys. In less than 30 minutes, you can watch the entire game. Either click the link in the description or the box above me, and you can see that entire game. And then if you have less than 30 minutes, basically just skip to the fourth quarter, and you'll see most of the action. Because heading into the fourth quarter, the score in this one was 6-3. So lots happened in the fourth quarter. But anyway, we were kind of expecting that just based on the personnel changes in this game. Josh Johnson and Landry Jones, the starting quarterbacks for both of these teams, saw their season opener basically this week because they didn't get to play last week, and most of the off-season training camp scrimmages they missed because of lower body injuries. So we were kind of expecting there to be a little bit of sloppiness coming into this game, and that's definitely what happened. Quite a bit of turnovers from both of these teams. LA definitely shot themselves in the foot a bit with 2 red zone fumbles. We had Landry Jones throw multiple interceptions in the first 3 quarters of the game. We really didn't get a lot of action, again, like I said, until the fourth quarter. But once they started to gel a little bit, you could definitely see the potential of both of these offenses being led by these talented quarterbacks. So let's go through and we'll break down both teams player by player from a fantasy angle and just go from there. So Landry Jones came into this one 28 of 40, 70% completion, 3 to 5 yards, first quarterback in the XFL to break that 300-yard ceiling. Had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, overall a rating of 79.7. Not bad for your first game back after missing a decent bit of time. Definitely was out of sync for a little bit, but overall looked really good. Now, the running game is the biggest story in this one. Now, last week, basically cautioned everyone to just kind of don't panic on Dallas Renegades, and the running backs definitely came through in that don't panic because Cameron Artis-Payne did not do very well last week, but this week he lit the league on fire. 14 attempts, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Also had 5 receptions on 5 targets for 32 yards through the air. So Cameron Artis-Payne has definitely shown that he has the potential to actually be a league-winning running back. We'll see if this continues or if this is just more bad defensive play from the Wildcats, but it's very hard to ignore what this offense does for those wide receivers. And because Cameron Artis-Payne is still being used in, as a receiver, even though Lance Dunbar is as well, that definitely makes him one of the very few dual threat running backs that is being used as the primary runner, but is also involved in the passing game. So he saw a massive boost to his value for the rest of the season. Hopefully you didn't sell low on him last week. Lance Dunbar also sees a boost in his value. He went 6 for 42 in this game, also had 6 targets, 5 receptions, 34 yards. So he's still being used heavily as a receiver out of the backfield. And that was really the only 2 running backs that really saw any work outside of special teams, which is what you want to see from a fantasy perspective. Cameron Artis-Payne and Lance Dunbar are looking really good if you drafted them. All right, let's jump over to the wide receivers. Now, Jazz Ferguson was actually named inactive before this game started, which was a bummer. I had him in a lot of DFS leagues that we were hoping for a resurgence, but we'll have to wait another week to see what Jazz Ferguson can do, possibly even longer, depending on how long this injury keeps him out. But Jeff Badette did see his return, and in the very first play, he left the game with, I believe it was a quad or a calf injury. Fortunately, he came back in. It must have just been cramps or some kind of a muscle strain. He played the rest of the game, and he played pretty well. 9 targets in this one, 6 catches for 53 yards. You'll take that. No touchdowns on this day, but he was targeted in the red zone multiple times. So definitely excited for what Jeff Badette is doing. Will be very interesting to see how they use Jazz Ferguson and Badette when he comes back. No other receivers here that are really that much, to note. Josh Crockett had 2 receptions for 57 yards, including that 39-yard bomb to finally kickstart the Renegades' fourth quarter. But other than that, didn't really see too much. Flynn Nagel, only 2 catches for 13 yards. And I'm not really that interested in Josh Crockett once Jazz Ferguson comes back. So this is basically Bidette and Ferguson once this offense is healthy. Now, looking at the tight ends, holy crap, Donald Parham, 11 targets, 5 receptions for 76 yards and 1 score. But he could have easily had 3 touchdowns in this one. One was just a little bit overthrown by Landry Jones, and then the other one, Donald Parham, just couldn't come down with it. But both of those would have been huge touchdowns, and he could have had an even more massive day. But for a tight end in the XFL to score nearly 20 points, that is massive. And I don't think there's anyone that's seen a bigger uptick in their fantasy value for the tight end than Donald Parham did this week. You'll see him featured in my trade video pretty soon, but overall, very excited for Donald Parham going forward. And then Sean Price, still a respectable day, 3 catches on 3 targets for 40 yards. Did have that fumble, which was a bit disappointing, but it wasn't really his fault. He just got hit really hard. So overall, very excited for this offense going forward. I think Landry Jones will just continue to improve as the season goes on. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Okay, jumping over to the Wildcats, looking at Josh Johnson's debut. 18 completions on 34 attempts, so 53% completion percentage. Respectable, not great. 196 yards though, and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Very good. Definitely kept his composure and his control. Got more accurate as the game went on, and I'm expecting this team to just continue to improve offensively as the season goes on. Jumping over to the running backs, Elijah Hood, 10 attempts for 31 yards and 1 catch for 0 yards. Looked pretty good when he was able to break free and not get hit behind the line of scrimmage, but he did have those 2 red zone fumbles. We'll see if the team decides to punish him for that going forward. Larry Rose, pretty much the only other running back here that got any work, 3 carries for 6 yards and 1 catch for 11 yards. So not really much going on in the run game here. This might just be a running backfield that we're ignoring for fantasy. Looking over at the receivers, Nelson Spruce, the guy that saw a meteoric rise in his fantasy value last week, just jumped up even more, if you can believe it. 9 targets this week, 6 receptions for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 44-yard touchdown bomb. Definitely watch the replay there if you guys want to see anything. That was beautiful throw from Josh Johnson. Could have had another one too that it was just on his fingertips, so he could have had a 3-score day. Jordan Smallwood is another name that we highlighted last week and definitely is for real. He is the wide receiver 2 in this offense. If anyone was still wondering who that was, it's definitely Jordan Smallwood. 6 targets 2 weeks in a row, 4 receptions and 32 yards. Definitely like what Jordan Smallwood is doing. Adonis Jennings saw 5 targets for 2 catches and 16 yards. Levante Whitfield, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 15 yards, and also had a run for 17 yards. So definitely sprinkling those guys in. But this is all about Nelson Spruce, a little bit about Jordan Smallwood, and a little bit about Brandon Barnes right now. Brandon Barnes, the tight end there, getting 3 targets on the day, 2 catches for 23 yards. Definitely expect a little bit more going forward, but when he was used, it was in high leverage situations, so look for him to have better fantasy output as the season goes on. From a defensive perspective, both of these teams played very respectfully until about the fourth quarter when the offenses just lit the world on fire. I like both of these defenses to continue to be average. I think Dallas is a little bit more disappointing. We weren't actually expecting that much out of LA before the season started, but it's been really hard to gauge Dallas, especially because last week was such an interesting anomaly without Landry Jones being there. But it does look like their defense is going to be a little bit more porous than we were expecting. So it's good news if you have fantasy players playing against them. And then the Wildcats, although they had 2 interceptions, didn't put too much pressure on Landry Jones and left a lot of guys wide open that, honestly, if Landry Jones would have been a little bit more accurate, which, I mean, 70% completion isn't bad, but if he would have been even more accurate, they would have gotten completely destroyed. So overall, both of these defenses leave a bit to be desired. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for rankings, waiver reports, everything that you need to manage your fantasy leagues, click that link in the description or go to fantasyaddictionnetwork.com. Access that all season long for free. And if you guys are looking for XFL fantasy and news content posted daily on YouTube, click that like and subscribe button. We'll be keeping you up to date on everything that's happening. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.